Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Startup Talk. And today we're talking about getting media attention. Now, as an entrepreneur, you might think that getting media coverage is only for big companies. But you'll be wrong, because getting media attention for your company can be a great way to get your name out there, to build buzz about what it is that you're doing, to attract new customers, and to grow your business, especially if you get your name on a website like BuzzFeed, Business Insider, or the New York Times. So if you want to get media attention for your startup or to level up your business, today's episode is for you. We're going to talk about how to get that attention, why you, even as a starting or a small business, should be thinking about getting media attention, what you need to have prepared when looking to reach out to the media, and how to get in contact with the right news outlet at the right time. And if you're new to the show, welcome. My name is Saskia, and I help you be the extraordinary entrepreneur you're meant to be. And one way that I do this is by hosting Startup Talk. Every week, I host a new guest, and we'll cover a topic that will help you grow as an entrepreneur and startup or level up your business. So join me here every Thursday, this time, and connect with fellow entrepreneurs. Share your best practices, your lessons learned, your wins, and your frustrations, so we can all grow together. And make sure to subscribe. We're live every week here on Facebook and YouTube, and if that time doesn't work for you, you can rewatch the episode on Facebook, YouTube, the website of the Entrepreneur Suite, and it's also available as a podcast on Spotify and iTunes. So however you're tuning in, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And share your thoughts in the comments. Whether you're listening live or you're watching the replay, that section is there for a reason. Let us know what you think. Now, let me tell you about our guest of today, which is the amazing, energizing Tracy Lamourie. She is an international award-winning publicist. She is the founder and managing director of Lamourie Media, 2020 Universal Women's Network. I just fell over my own words. She is a Women of Inspiration Women for Women in Media, and she is the author of the upcoming book, Get Wrapped, Build Your Brand with Effective Public and Media Relations. So she helps entrepreneurs grow their business using the power of PR. So let's give a warm welcome to Tracy. Hey, Tracy.
Hello. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, it's good to have you on the show. I think the topic you chose, it's amazing, since getting the right media attention can really make the difference for your business, even when you're just starting out. So I've really been looking forward to today's show. So Tracy, tell me, you are an international award-winning publicist. How did that came to be? What is your origin story?
It is a crazy origin story. I'll try to tell it in
those are the best.
thing. But basically, the background is my origin story teaches people that there's something, probably something in your own life that you love or care about or are passionate about that you could actually, make a business out of. And it might be something you never ever thought of. So my story was I was in sales and marketing in my mid to late 20s, entry level sales and marketing. So was my husband, Dave Parkinson. Who had a radio show a couple of years before that we'd done together. So we were kind of media minded, and we were also advocates and activists and anti-racist activists and all the things you're passionate about in your 20s that I still am passionate about today. And one of the things we just happened to learn about the case of a man named Jimmy Dennis, who was at that time on death row in Pennsylvania, factually innocent on death row. The world didn't know that at the time. He was saying that, and we found that information in a little corner of the internet. And as activists, but also because we had the radio show not long ago, we were still kind of in information gathering phase. So something I don't know why we did it, but my husband and I actually wrote a letter at 29 years old. We wrote a letter to this guy on death row. Tell us his story. What's this all about? How innocent can this guy be? And he sent back 28 pages, tightly written on both sides, all the details, legal documents that he had in his cell at the time. That was the beginning of a journey where we ended up getting all the legal documents available to the court. We read the entire court record. Long story short, we ended up thinking, okay, so now that we've gathered this information from this person, what do we do? So here we are, 29 years old. We're not lawyers. We're not publicists. But we felt, we for some reason reached out. This person sent back all this information. Now it's on us to do something about it, because why did we do that? Just for amusement?
One question I want to ask first. So you just found this person, or you happened upon it? And how did you know he was factual innocent?
My husband and I were making a website. We didn't have the radio show anymore, so we thought, oh, we still want to have a voice. So we were just making a website just of general causes that we cared about. Death penalty had nothing to do with it. We weren't thinking about that at all. Racism issues, maybe police abuse might have been. So we were just like looking for links on the internet that other people had and somewhere literally in a little corner of the internet where, how you get in a rabbit hole on links, right? Because we wouldn't be looking for the death penalty or anything. But he paid $20 to some lady who was typing on the internet and putting people's, whatever prisoner. And somehow we saw that because it came up in a racism thing. I don't even know. And it just struck. We didn't know him. We never dealt with anything to do with the death penalty. So, people asked, why did we write that letter? And that's, I just kismet. I don't know. It's strange that we did, but I think
it just happened. It had to happen.
Yeah, and not only were we activists, but we had that radio show. So that's the other key, like information gathering in our minds, right? But once we had done that, we're like, okay, now what do we do with this? Because this person is obviously desperate. This is real. He's written us a 30-page letter. Like, what do we do now? So we thought, well, put it on the internet, I guess, which is kind of naive, and we didn't even know what we were doing. It was 1999. And so we put it on the internet without even permission. Then we wrote him back, hey, we put that on the internet. On the what now? Because it was early. You heard of it, but we printed it all up. We sent it so we could see. Anyway, it was the beginning of a 20-year advocacy campaign, basically. We ended up for 20 years, he was ultimately released in 2017 on evidence of factual innocence. So he's out now. He's an acclaimed R&B artist. He's been covered in Rolling Stone. It's an incredible story. Wow, literally Hollywood is coming around talking about it and all that. So you'll probably see that on screen someday. But nothing right now about that. But essentially,
still it's an amazing story.
And here's where it comes back to a business story, though. I know it's hard to because I wrote my first press release in 1998, literally to let the world know about that, and it became successful. We ended up writing other press releases. Again, this is separate from my day job. This is just advocacy. My media communications ended up getting us on CNN, on MSNBC, on Court TV, not talking about Jimmy, because in those days when someone was convicted, there were no wrongful conviction podcasts and all that. It was the end of the day. Inside the States, we've got very little attention about his case. We got lots of attention inside the States about us putting the death row online. You know what I'm saying? So we were the story stateside. Internationally, the story was the people we were talking about. So it took me until I was 41, because I kept on being in sales and marketing, and there's nothing. It took me until I was 41 that it hit me that I could take the skills that I had built there in advocacy. Oops, sorry guys, and build a career. And so from there, I literally learned to write a press release.
Wow! So that was your 20 years origin story on how to do publicity. But that's amazing, and you saved a guy's life.
Yeah, that pretty much.
Amazing.
It wasn't just us alone.
So from there, so you knew you had this calling. You could do great things with it. How did you take it further?
Well, from there, in terms of, say that again. Sorry.
So you knew this. You had this calling. You had this gift. You knew you were able to save a man's life using the power of media attention, of public relations. How do you take it further from there?
It just, literally, it just hit me from there that I could literally, the skills that I had developed for media, being in media, talking about media, just learning how to access media, basically, where I realized then that, 80% or 90% of entrepreneurs don't have any conception or any really understanding of how to access media attention. They really don't. Entrepreneurs think about advertorial, but they don't understand editorial. And what gets you in the, what will work in, advertising, which is what we are trained to do and what we understand as entrepreneurs, is absolutely what will keep you out of the news.
So as a starting entrepreneur or as a starting business, how do you get started? Why
did I start my company? Literally, when that hit me, when I was 41, I was in telesales at the time. So I was sitting there doing 20 calls an hour from home, for something I absolutely didn't care about. Mm-hmm. And then it hit me, when that idea hit me, I literally understood that. Sorry, I literally understood that we have all the opportunity in the world, because right in front of us there, that screen that we're looking at has every advantage. So sorry, I had to go do something about that.
We're getting a whole
It's our
tour of
delivery is the podcast. The entrepreneur life.
yeah.
So sometimes you have to make things happen. You have to pivot, like when you have to answer the door to a delivery person.
So that was what's happening.
Okay, now I'm back where we started.
You're back. Okay. So say for just
I
for company.
realize that we have every opportunity in front of us. When I thought and this is about strategy, and this is what what entrepreneurs can really take to heart too. Literally that day, it was that hour that I thought, I don't have to do this anymore. I don't want to make 20 calls an hour for something I don't care about. I have these skills. So how can I think that's a publicist. How do I find that? So in the early days, I just started freelancing. I went to sites, I think it's called Upwork now. In those days, it was called Free Cycle. I got a couple of amazing clients, just, priced myself really low to start to show I can do this, because I had lots of advocacy histories. I could show myself that I got myself in media, but I didn't have anything where I had worked for other people to get them into media beyond the cause that I was doing. So that's what I had to start doing. Luckily, this is amazing. One of my first clients, Angela Sadler Williamson, she is the cousin of Rosa Parks.
Oh, wow.
Rosa Parks, the civil rights legend, American civil rights legend, Martin Luther King, all those days. So one of my very first clients right out the gate, she had a movie called My Life with Rosie about her cousin, which was about Rosa Parks' next 30 years, her 30 years of advocacy after the bus, Alabama.
Yeah, the bus happening.
A children's book, My Life with Rosie, A Bond Between Cousins. I just happened to have it on my desk. About advocacy, teaching kids about advocacy and activism. So there's an amazing project that kind of came into my, my heart, the activism, the advocacy that brought me here. So I've been super lucky, to be able to access projects like that. And that gave me the confidence. Well, now I'm in the game. I'm getting paid to be a publicist. I'm this is the kind of client I have. So then it was just no stopping me. And then I had originally was just a little freelancer, and then we built into a general partnership for 5 years, and then that went really well. And then my business consultant, because it's funny, because startup show, we all have things we don't know. I was super good at what I did, like amazing at being a freelancer, but I had no idea how to build a business. If I'd had any business understanding, when I started this like 9 years ago, if I had the understanding of a business that I do now, or that most people do when they start a business, instead of just kind of going into the freelance work, we would be the biggest PR company in Canada now, probably approaching North America, because the media that I've been able to get from my company, the way I've been able to build my personal brand, the way I do for my clients, I've been on over 200 panels, podcasts, television shows, radio shows in the last 8 months, speaking to business audiences about entrepreneurship, about leadership, about authenticity, about, so this is what I do for my clients. To me, it's easy to find these opportunities to promote yourself, to, so that's what I do. But if I had the understanding of how to build a business at the back end, this would be $1 billion company already. So now that I have a killer business consultant who brought me from freelancer to general partnership, who said, no, that you need to scale up, like you're way above your weight. You're operating, look at what you're doing in the world, and you're not even a corporation. So I finally incorporated during COVID, and I'm glad I did. But it's hard to get your head around. It's a whole different thing, right? Like it was intimidating for me.
But that's typically the thing, you're good at one thing, and then it's like, how do you turn that into a thriving business? You have this calling, you want to do more. And I know a lot of people who actually ask me like, hey, how do you turn it into a business? And that's the whole reason why I started the Entrepreneur Suite, to actually help people like, hey, if you have a passion, you have your calling, that's great. I would love to learn all about that, but also I would love to help you turn that into a business. If you want to turn it into
9 years ago, exactly.
We should have met 9 years ago.
But even now, I should probably talk to you about I have a consultant to help me with one side, but it's true. You really, and I talk about this all the time now. I'm so glad I fell into this, in that weird way, because now it's funny that I look at, jobs that I one time would have looked like good jobs to me, that I thought those were good jobs, and now I look at it and think, oh gee, that's so sad. And sometimes my income is up here, sometimes it's here, it fluctuates. Entrepreneur life, right?
Yeah, that's the
It'll be
deal.
$1 billion business soon, but it's good. It always pays the bills. I never have to do anything else. So it's all work. It's great.
Yeah.
But through the 9 years, there's been different times. But that's the key. There's so many people, I'm sure, like me, who are super good at what they do. And I never would have started a business because that intimidated me. I didn't know anything about that. I just knew how to, work and then be a freelancer. But I was so good at that I'm like, geez, everyone around me is going, you need to scale it up. So I started to scale it up as a person who didn't know how to scale it up.
No, but it's already, well, and that's the thing with a business, of course. It's overwhelming. How do you do everything? But actually, what I want to learn more about is, so you have this gift of publishing, of getting media attention. For someone who's just starting their business, who is looking into getting media attention, how do you start?
So there are a million different ways, and it's nothing to be intimidated about, because if you're, if you're a talker, there's ways to do it. If you're more of a writer, you're more, you don't have to necessarily even be an outgoing person. You don't have to feel, you have to be like me. You don't have to be like, hey, I'm going to talk to anybody. But you do have to start thinking about this thing, because with all the platforms that we have today, if you are not taking advantage, if you're not thinking about building your thought leadership, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second, then your competitor is, and you're actually losing out. If you're just doing work and serving your 1 or 2 clients, or long term, you're not servicing your business, because your competitor, someone in your competitor is doing it. And if you want, it's number one, okay, you want to do this, PR will do the same things. The first step is it does the same things advertising does, in the sense of it'll attract people to your business, attract customers, separate you from your competitor. But actually it does that in a far more strategic way, separating yourself from your competitor. Because one of my clients that you had or are having on it, because I deal with a couple of startups, and I won't say which one, but she said to me, after 6 weeks of working together, "You've literally changed my business and my life." And I get a lot of accolades, but I thought that's a really strong accolade.
That is
what
strong.
do you mean?
Yeah.
And she said, this is where I hadn't even thought about investors before. She said, "You've made investors take us more seriously." And this is when they were going to their seed funding, right? And that's huge, because I was always thinking customers, differentiating from your client, putting it on your page and you look. But she was like, no, think about that. Startup, right? We're talking about hard money. What is it, when you are trying to get that investor to drop $1 million, drop $100 million, you just having an idea and a concept and a deck is one thing. But then even if it's a great idea and a great concept and a great deck, but then all of a sudden you can show that you've been, like you said, some of those publications that you mentioned at the beginning, that you've been featured here, or that you've won this award, because that's what I do for my clients. I find awards for them. I find, find platforms for them. I find places for them to speak. I find places for them to be, accolades. So if an investor, you can add to your investor deck 3 articles where you're quoted as a power woman, public, blah, 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 and all that. And talking about how there's, international interest in this concept, and that, obviously, click. That's literally the one thing. An investor dropping a bunch of money on you can be that easy. The difference between, well, it's a cute idea, but whatever, and oh, really? Look at that. Entrepreneur wrote about them. Oh, wow. Prosperity Press says this. Right there. Getting money. Now you're on the go. Your company's not dead. You're going. Yeah. And so that opened my mind too, because I'm not a hard business girl. I'm only learning this stuff. I wasn't thinking about the investment side, or I was thinking about the customer side, but now that opened my mind to how, vital it is in other regards too. So literally at every stage, no matter what, whether you're a little entrepreneur who's just starting a little business the way I started mine, but you're an expert in whatever you do. It doesn't matter what side you're, if you're taking people's money to do something, then clearly you believe you're an expert, right? Absolutely. So take that same confidence, because, when, and use it for media. Because whenever I meet someone who's amazing at what they do, I'm always like, geez, how come you haven't been interviewed about that? How come you're not talking? And they're like, what? Like, how would that, what? It's just not a...
Well, I don't think it's first on mind, It's you're an expert, you're building your business, but you're not directly thinking. If I were to look at myself, I don't think like, hey, if I would send a mail to BuzzFeed, be like, hey, you want to feature me? I don't think they'd be like, well, yes, we would like to feature you.
It's all in how you. That's the difference. So the advertising, you wouldn't be like for example, if I want to come on your show, I don't just say Tracy's an international award-winning publicist, because then you're like, okay.
Sounds interesting.
Great.
Yeah.
I have to say why it matters to your audience, why it's a value. So when I'm pitching myself for a show, I'm like, Tracy is an international award-winning publicist. She can speak to people in any industry about how to catapult yourself to the top of any industry using PR and media. That's one of my, using free publicity and free media. That's one of my things that I talk about. Or another one I could say is Tracy can go and speak about how, she building up yourself, your own confidence, so you can you build up your brand, so you can build up your community. Or Saskia, what I would say, but Saskia has an international perspective on what entrepreneurs are thinking and doing today on a daily basis. She speaks to entrepreneurs around the world about their challenges, their whatever. So Saskia is a incredible source on what entrepreneurs are thinking today and how they're managing COVID. And sure, they'd have you on. Then you figure out what audience that matters to.
Then it becomes relevant to the news outlet as well. Okay, so first thing is know that you're a thought leader and on what topic exactly. The second thing is make it specific towards the audience of the news outlet.
Absolutely.
And then how do you know which news outlet to contact? How do you know where you would have a good fit?
And this is the thing. This is where you start getting into the stuff that takes the time and strategy. And that's the question: do you want to? If you have more money, basically, if you have more money than time, get a publicist to do some of this, right? If you're just starting out really, figuring out to do it all on yourself, you can't. So I'll answer that question in that regard. One way to think about it is watch those media. How do you figure out what their audience is and what they care about? Well, you just get to know the media. And if you're thinking about a story that you would like to place, right? Say you're watching, would that be likely to be in a 22-minute news broadcast? Watch that 22-minute news broadcast. And remember, they have this much time. Are they likely to be interviewing you about a 5-minute thing about entrepreneurs there, which is not a hot news story right now, unless there's something going on specific? So by that kind of question, you figure out where to go. Like, is it a hot news story that really the newsroom of that 22-minute nightly news broadcast where he has 6 minutes that's not, world news, that's not sports, are you really going to be in there? Or is it more likely that you'd be in the lifestyle section? The story you're thinking of is more likely a business story or the lifestyle. So think about where you would likely read something like what you're thinking of, right?
I like that.
And then start to angle. And then also when you pitch yourself, your pitch is not your bio. You should have you've heard elevator pitch, right? Similar to that, but with a media thing. So again, why you're of interest, why you use words like compelling, why you're a compelling speaker on this, why you have so have your little one paragraph thing that's, you're more about Tracy, you're more about Saskia, you're more about, that can be, for whatever. That's not the pitch itself. It's part of it though. And then think things like a good topical news to get into the media. Here's there's 3 different ways. One is what you think in the traditional press release, which is, I'm Saskia, I have this idea, interview me, and you send it widely and you see who picks it up. Mm-hmm. Another similar to that is, say there's something going on in the news that is definitely going to be an ongoing story, like something like COVID or Black Lives Matter, or something that is definitely not just a one hit, right? And you legitimately have something to say on that topic. This is called a topical release based on your expertise. So something where you might turn around to your friend and you're watching the news. I mean, like say I'm just going to make a stupid version here. Like say you're a psychologist and you're watching, you're watching the news and they talk about the breakup of Bill and Melinda Gates, and you think, oh, gee, I have something to say about that. You don't know Bill and Melinda, but but you can, as you're a psychologist, you're maybe a good, you work in divorce with high profile people or something, so you can say, hey, as a psychologist who works in divorce with high profile people, I can comment on this story and say blah blah blah. So you're taking a story in the news, you're adding your voice to it, and if it's something that you have an expertise in, that they may actually, because they need to carry that news story forward, they may need different voices, so you're giving another perspective. That's a topical release. Something's going on, you're adding something to it based on your expertise.
Okay, so it's really about giving your expert opinion on a certain topic. That's
I mean, maybe not take it they may, but if you think it's interesting, and pitch it. And then a lot of times too, you may send a press release to the newsroom, not necessarily you're thinking, I mean, you don't want to ever send a press release to the newsroom that is not newsworthy, but you may send one to the newsroom where they don't pick it up. It may be newsworthy, but for whatever reason, they don't have time, they don't have 2 minutes, they don't pick it up, but still you've reached out to them, and now they know you now. And so maybe the next time they'll know that you're a player. So, that's not a fail necessarily, as long as you didn't bother them with something that's completely inappropriate,
Yeah, yeah.
But
So
if it's
if your content
appropriate
is
and it
good,
might
they can
cover,
they can also come back to you about it.
they do. I had a client, in Canada, pre-legal Canada, we're coast to coast cannabis legal since 2018, right?
Mhm.
Like a huge big business. It's like bankers. We're not talking hippie. We're talking bankers, doctor,
Yeah,
people leaving
big money.
big money, people leaving the industry to go into that. And just before that happened, right? Like, so 2017, so we legalized the end of 2018. So while that was all coming and the conversation was building in the country, but it wasn't strictly legal, and the stigma was reducing, but it was still there. A client hired me who was she worked in she was like a little suburban mom. This is a small client, not a big, little suburban mom who worked in reflexology, and she used cannabis in reflexology, cannabis oil or whatever.
Mhm.
And so the story that we did it's funny because it's changed so much now. This would never fly now. Or then it was like, ooh, look, oh, suburban mom in the cannabis business. Oh, wow, and media actually responded to that like, oh, isn't that wow? Because we were leading up to interesting part. So she got a couple of interviews, our national CBC, a few, good interviews. And then 8 months later, when it was about to be legal, like when it was, now all the media is looking for expert quotes, looking for whatever. She called me one day. She said, "Oh my God, dude, I don't even know what's happening." And I laugh. I said, "Well, because they got you in their Rolodex." She got like 20 calls from the media that day, including Canadian Press, which is like our Associated Press, which if Canadian Press is a story about you, you're in 200 newspapers, right?
Oh,
CBC,
wow.
CTV, all the news. Everybody called her because they had her in the Rolodex as the nice mom, the suburban, not the, they wanted to get that kind of angle. She like literally built her career on that. She was in 200 everywhere. So now she doesn't even need me anymore. Whenever anybody, is looking for that kind of way, they just Google, they find her, they contact her.
That's
So,
amazing. That's
you know,
amazing. So it's even if it doesn't have to be a success right away, make sure you get in the Rolodex as a thought
yeah,
leader, as an expert, as something unique as well, I think. So
yeah.
being a Canadian mom in a suburb, doing the cannabis thing, it's quite unique, or at least
It
it
was
was
in
for them.
2017. Like it was like, ooh, wow, she's talking about that. Ooh. And then obviously now it's less, but when they needed that, because when we said that release, there wasn't a lot of interest. They didn't need, she did a little bit of media, but but when it became a national story, when they needed that, it was scrambling for someone. They're like, oh, like, what do we got? Who do we got? And then all of a sudden now she's there. So, and it can be any part in any business person, small, large, corporate, anything. Because I work with creatives, with entertainment, with corporate, but I love working with entrepreneurs, honestly, because they don't
Really?
have it
Why is
in their
that?
head. I'm creating stars. I'm creating careers. Like another example, personal chef that hired me, and literally she's with me for like 3 months, and that's time to renew. But literally probably the second day she hired me, because again, I'm just starting to look for these opportunities, finding what's out there. Once I literally almost the second day she hired me, I saw an opportunity for and I can't remember, I'm not actually sure if it's the Food Network or something similar, but it's of that level, right? And
Mhm.
they were looking for chefs that she had zero media. She's got a great reputation, what she does locally and all that, done great stuff, good bio, but zero media. So I wrote up the bio, I attached everything and blah blah blah, made it compelling and poppy and all that. Anyway, so sent her in. They're looking to build a show around a chef. So I sent her in. I said, send your audition tape, do this, blah, blah, blah. 2 months later, she just messaged me the other day. Oh, a message from them. Yeah, we had a meeting with our board of directors. They love you. We talked to our New York distributor. They want to see a half hour, like they want to see a show. They want a one. So they said, we know you don't have it. So on our company's expense, we're going to send over to film a pilot.
No
So they're
way. That's
literally filming a
amazing.
pilot, and it's like this. It looks like she's going to be, and she's beautiful young Black woman, cool, like awesome.
That's
Awesome.
amazing.
If I was
Yeah.
them, I'd take her too. But they didn't have any way to find her. Nobody knew her. She wasn't in the mix. She'd just be a chef forever.
Yeah, so you
And
need
she
to
is a
make
chef.
sure
She
that
loves
people
what she
can
will.
find you.
But I mean,
Yeah.
that's all she would have done, right? Like in that little realm forever. And then literally 2 days she hired me. I gave her my lowest price, $100,000 for a month, because I have a deal for entrepreneurs that can't, you can't afford
Yeah.
3,000 a month, 3 months minimum. So I deal with $100,000, and that's just, I've got her 10 or 12 things this month,
That's
over the time.
amazing.
That's just one of them, and that could
Wow.
literally be a new
There can
career.
be life changing, She could be
Life
he
changing.
or she could be a celebrity
Now she
chef.
be a celebrity chef.
Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing we get a question. We are having a question from Tamsin. Hey Tamsin, welcome to the show. She's asking, hello ladies, Tracy, how are media outlets different in different countries? So in the way you pitch to a media in the US, is that different to the way you pitch in Canada? And if so, what is the difference?
Yeah, no, I don't really find. I find like anywhere in the English speaking world I work, with impunity. I work, even in other countries, the language primarily, or the culture is different, or the language isn't English primarily. But,
Mhm.
I work with English speaking media in those countries, or I work with clients in those countries who want to be international, who want a global brand. So I have clients all over the world that I pitch to American media, and that I get featured in American media, mainstream American media, and, profiles and all that. And so in terms of, yeah, that's a good question. It's a really good question. I don't think there's and I'm just thinking now, like, is there? But I
I'm
don't think that
thinking, well, maybe there could be a cultural difference.
that's
I
what I'm
had,
thinking on now in terms
yeah.
of, but in terms of sending the media release out to, the thing, I haven't really bumped into any kind of, um, anything really different in terms of the media communication. And I've placed media, like I had an article written about me in South Africa today, which I never, actually, they just pre-published, like republished something that was written in the States. But now I'm going to contact them and thank them, and I'll have that media as my, so really, it's just everything is about building relationships. And like, I unfortunately I'm limited. I only speak English like an idiot. I'm limited. I have French background. I speak a little bit of French, but not really enough business French to feel confident in terms of PR and communications and getting the right messaging out. Right. So,
Mhm.
I only speak to the English speaking world, but on a global level. And what I find is, media and people are people wherever you go, and the media too has the same, pretty much aesthetic in terms of what I deal. And again, I deal with entertainment media, business media. I was kept away from politics over the last few years. It's,
Yeah.
I used
Okay.
to I used to love politics, I used to want to be in politics and stuff, but the more I do media, the more I see, like, I really prefer to do messaging that doesn't change with the wind, that doesn't change. When I take on like, that's why I don't like corporate as much either. I really prefer like something where there's or an individual who's making decisions, an individual who's accountable, not a team. I hate doing PR by, oh, we have this media opportunity and there's an eight person boardroom, and I don't mind corporate, but it's got to be one person who is the guy that I can trust, that I can bounce things off, that he's a spokesperson, that, you know what I mean. So I don't like the political stuff so much anymore, because it's been in politics. You just can't get away from the fact that a lot of
Yeah.
it is spin, because you're trying to convince people of
Yeah.
your
How do you spin
angle
it?
as opposed to necessarily a truth, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I don't have to do spin, because I take on clients where, whether they're creatives or business or whatever, they're just doing really good things, and I'm just elevating and celebrating what they're doing. I'm not
Yeah.
having to try to convince you. Like, I'm just showing you. You know what I mean? I'm
I
not
love
having to
that
try
saying,
to convince you
elevating
or
and
show you.
celebrating. I think that's something every entrepreneur should try to do more, elevating themselves, celebrating what they're doing, and getting that out there in the media.
It makes every difference.
Absolutely. Tamsin, I hope that answers your question. What I want to add to it, do you notice a difference between digital or written media, or with TV shows versus, I don't know, the online articles? Do you notice a difference there? How do you approach that?
In terms of reaching out,
Yeah.
no, and you know what? I forgot to tell you when we were talking about the press. This is really important, because this is something people can do on their own. When we were talking about the press releases and the topical press releases, and this answers this question too. There's a third thing, and this is
That's a
the new
perfect.
media. This is what has happened since, the interwebs, and this gives you, every listener, the same tools that Publicist had, that the old days only Publicist had. And further, it's free. You don't have to pay for it. It will take a time investment, and in order to be successful at it, you need to actually learn how to do it right, which is where we talk about advertorial versus editorial. You have to understand, what the media room is looking for, and it's not an ad for your company. It's you as an expert giving information, right?
Yeah.
So the same way that we met, which is a service like Matchmaker or Poddit, or services that connect high profile podcasts with, appropriate guests, mainstream media has services like that too. So
They
there's
do?
things. Oh yeah, I'm going to tell you about it right now.
Oh, do tell. Do
But
tell.
some people use this and they don't get the results we get, and they're like, oh, it didn't work, because again, it's a skill, and you have to know what they're looking for, and you're not just throwing garbage at them and then wondering why you're not getting anything, right? So, but the same way we met with, so first Matchmaker, podcast, Pod it, what is it? Pitch Podcast, Matchmaker, there's podcast match services. Check
Yeah.
them out if you're an entrepreneur and you're not shy to talk, because they're, number one. And then when you to the big guys in a sec, because there's high profile podcasts, there's just small ones just starting out, and
Yep.
even if a small one just starting out is hugely valuable. I don't care if it's 20 listeners or 10,000, because that 20 listener one could have 10,000 in a year, and people go back and listen to the earlier ones. So
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. And I can
and
attest to
also,
that. I'm using those kinds of services as well. That's how we met. And I must admit as well, it's how you meet amazing guests from all over the world. But so that's really about getting into podcasts. How do
but
you do
let
it
me
for
tell you
other?
about the other one, the not podcast one.
Yes.
Yeah. So write this down, you guys. Helpareporterout.net, which is Harrow, known as Harrow. And the other
Wait,
one
I'm going
is
to add that.
American, and it's probably about 60% American. However, I use it all the time, and only about 20% things say you must be US. So it's open to most English speaking. SourceBottle is another one in Australia. And that one's mostly Australian, but again, there's some opportunities internationally. So what you'll
So
see
you,
on Harrow, and I got it literally open right in front of me because I always do,
Mhm.
is
So
every
wait, because you're going really fast, and I want to keep this. So the first one is helpareporterout.net.
known as
Okay.
Harrow. Yeah, helpareporterout.net, which is
Okay.
Harrow,
So
Haro.
yeah. Oh,
No,
so it's
yeah,
the
yeah.
abbreviation, or is it written
And
like I'm having it here right now in the screen?
that's an email list. So you sign up with that. It's free. And 3 times a day, they send you like an email that has like 100 requests in it from
Okay.
Report NBC. Oh, using that service, I've gotten clients in Oprah.com, the Oprah the magazine, the list, New York Times, the New Yorker, Reader's Digest several times, Good Housekeeping.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
talking stuff like that. Yeah, like create stuff that builds careers. I had one 26-year-old client that I got her in Good Housekeeping this way. She had zero media. The next year now we have like every media on mental health. So I'm in COVID right now. And literally I was looking through before we came on. It's like have it open in front of my screen like I often do. So this is just to give you an idea. Fox Business Network right now, they're doing is our COVID-19 vaccines unleashing a wedding boom. They're looking to hear from wedding vendors and couples who are planning weddings for 2021 who can speak about why people are getting married now, what wedding plans are looking like. So if you're a
Ah,
wedding planner right there, there's an opportunity to get on Fox News. You would send your answer real quick, what you thought, more about Saskia. This is why I'm an expert, like we talked about before.
yep.
Boom,
Yep.
send. They might get 4 answers, they might get 400. But you answer exactly what they asked correctly, right, and compellingly. You do 10 of them, you're going to get, you won't get every one, but you will get some. Like I said, I just named up Good Housekeeping, New York Times, New Yorker, Reader's Digest, things that are really like high end, right?
That-
Rolling
yeah, those
Stone,
are the big names. So you
Rolling
mentioned,
Stone, all those using
yeah,
this service.
no way. That's
Not
amazing.
knowing those reporters, where I didn't know those reporters, and literally we have right now another one here, like executive, like looking right here, executive dysfunction and why depression makes basic tasks hard. That's for Allure magazine, which is a print magazine, right?
Mhm.
I'm working on a piece for Allure, deadline May 14th, about why depression can make performing daily tasks difficult, and how this I'm looking for psychologists who explain why this occurs and offer any advice. I'm also looking for professionals who have experiences to share some of their thoughts and advice they might have. So
Wow.
you could be like, yeah, you know what? I was depressed. I'm a marketing agent. And I was depressed in the office and blah blah. You know what I mean? Like some of them are personal stories. Some of them are more like, mostly it's more professional. But you also see where they're looking for a personal story. You're looking for a RD or an MD to weigh in on a study on vegan diets and warding off disease. NBC. Like
Wow.
literally, so this is like reporters who are looking for a quick, it's not like it was 50 years ago where you had to know your source and you had to know that reporter. These are reporters who are on 10 deadlines for 5 different stories. They're not experts in any of them. They're not going to go out, and they don't. And the funny thing is, you see that a lot of calls for real estate agents on here, and everybody knows 10 real estate agents, right? So you'd think if a
Absolutely.
reporter wants to ask an agent a question, they would just call up a real estate agent,
You'd
but they
expect they
don't.
just pick up the phone, right? They'd be like, "Hey, we spoke last week."
But they don't. You know why? Because they want someone who's media friendly, who knows how to give good quote, who's going to understand what they want, which is information, not an ad for their company. He's not going to be scared. Not going. Media doesn't have time to go through all that stuff with 15 people. So they go to a publicist. You got anybody? Or they go to this service where publicists are going to see it, or super smart entrepreneurs, and then do it. So some people start doing it. A lot of people, it depends on how much time and effort you have. But what my clients find hugely amazing is they don't have to go through all this and look through it and figure it out. And I literally look through them all for all my clients. So every day they just get a, hey, look, you're a chef. Look at this. Here's 5 media opportunities for chefs. Send me your answer. They send me the answer. I send it to the reporter with that extra cachet of, hey, my client is hugely, that Publicist separation where, and I hate, and I'm not just being PR here because I'm a DIY girl and I think it's annoying that some people think you need to have a publicist, but I have had, not often, but I have had some entrepreneurs where they've tried to send things without a publicist actually get told by the reporter, have a publicist send this. And I thought, what the heck? That's crazy. I thought that's rude. And then I thought later, that's probably just a reporter that's really sick of weeding through advertorial stuff.
So instead of, the advertorial stuff, instead of the editorial.
That I've taught them and told them, no, this is what they need. I thought I've talked about the advertorial versus editorial. I thought I did, but then in the end, I'll give them a media opportunity, for example. And there was one where it was a design company, and I said they had the opportunity to answer Haro about design, and their answer was something like, "Oh, well, it was something." The question was something about the challenges and advice about DIY design or something like that. So what the answer the reporter was looking for was something like, "It's really hard, it's difficult to design a bathroom. Here are some tips, blah blah blah, from Bob from Bob's Design." Instead, I had to fight with this client so much. No, you don't understand, because what they kept on giving me was like, oh, it's really hard to do this. People have a lot of problems doing it. Bob's Design is better. Call Bob's and we'll help.
Yeah, so then it's a sales call, and no one's going to print a sales call like that.
Media gets tired of that, and they're like, so I guess part of, our job as publicists, the media, our client sees us as getting the information to the media, which we only do successfully because the media sees us, even if they don't know me, they don't know who the heck I am. I sent a media in Malaysia a press release, doesn't matter. I'm a legit PR company. The media knows and expects from me vetting. That I'm not sending them crap, because if I start sending them advertorial stuff, I can do that maybe once. After that, I don't have any.
And then you're done.
Because they're not going to open my messages anymore. So they know, any media around the world, when they get something from a publicist, they expect, okay, this is news. It may not be news I'm going to use. It may not be news that we have in our, it may not be, we may decide editorially, it's not for our audience today, or we've done something similar, or we're not. However, it is news. It's not going to be bullshit. It's not going to be something that you know what I mean? It's not going to be, which they see all the time. I've literally seen somebody try to send, trying to send to media. It was a carpet cleaning company, not my client. It was a media person told me this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're laughing about it like you're laughing about business, right? A carpet cleaning company. There's no reason you can't reach out to media. Maybe you have a story but they literally sent to media, to the newsroom, what they're a better carpet company cleaning than the next guy and what their prices were.
Okay, that's an ad.
To the newsroom. What is the editor going to do with that? Great.
Well, they did have guts,
Exactly. They'll send you right to the ad department, even if it's not that blatant, because even if it's just another story, that's an ad. Even if a client came to me with a story about the great, and I thought it was a news story for a minute too. Even I have to check myself, right? Because I put it out there. News story was COVID related. This business had done some really amazing things. They were donating something to schools across England, right? And it was a really good story. And then I put it out and not one pickup. And I'm like, man. And then I reread it harshly as the news person to myself. And I'm like, okay, so what do I got here? I got a business telling me they've done something good. What's that? Oh, an ad.
That's an ad. Yeah.
So that doesn't mean you can't get that in there, but there's different ways to get it in there. So I told my client, in that case, we have to really completely rework this. It can't be put out as you doing this. Nobody cares. Now what we have to do is talk. What we have to do is get an expert in education to talk. That's the person talking, and then you can be on a panel with this person talking about what the issue is and how you're one of the people solving the issue. But we're not talking about the business. We bring you in as talk. You know what I mean? So the education expert is the person that we're getting the interview with. That's a news story. He's talking about the scene in general. And now we can get in, one of the solutions that's been provided along with other ones, to make it not advertorial.
Yeah, then you can put it like that.
You can still do it, but you can't just do it. So that's a difference.
True. That's amazing. Well, I think you gave some really amazing tips that are directly actionable by the viewers here as well. If my viewers want to learn more about you, how can they connect with you, Tracy?
Yes, please. And like I said, I do work internationally. So if anybody finds this and if it's a value or would like to learn more or consult with me, I do want to say that because I do so much work with entrepreneurs, like I said, I definitely make it available, entry-level pricing where it's not intimidating, where any entrepreneur, there's 2 different packages under $1,000 that you can benefit from. And the way that compares to regular PR is normally $3,000 a month, 3 months minimum. And the
Wow.
discount is not because you're not getting the same quality. It's literally because I spend so much time speaking to entrepreneurs that I don't want the end of the story to be like, that sounds great. Can we do it? And then I tell them, $9,000 up front, because most entrepreneurs, even me when I'm doing well, if it's an unknown and you don't understand it, you're not going to drop $10,000, right?
No.
So up front. So that's why I have under $1,000. Anybody can start. They can do limited 1 month. Even I prefer 3 because that gives a strategy, right? But
Yeah.
even if you want for 1 month, the special that I offer to listeners is like, challenge me. I don't take anybody's money unless I know upfront what I can get. So now that I've been doing this for a long time, I know I can get this, I can get this, I can get this. And then I still have 3 weeks left where we're pitching to the world, whatever opportunity comes in and we see. So nobody leaves Lamourie Media without media. You always get, and if it's been 4 weeks and for some reason you haven't had it, like this has literally never happened, but for some reason, say, 4 weeks ended and you had no media, then you know what would happen? Your 4 weeks wouldn't end. I would literally keep on. I will tell you when the 4 weeks is over, I would keep on working until I get the results I'm
Until you have the
happy.
results. I
It's a
love that.
hugely
That's
public,
amazing.
my business is public. This is when this is what it's for. Is you build your brand, get media attention. I don't want anybody giving me money and then not getting something. So you get, even if you just come in for the one boom, $1,000, then you walk away with your pitch, because then I'll have written your pitch. You'll understand how you can be. You'll understand the editorial versus advertorial. Understand how you can be promoted and placed, and then you can hit the ground running and do it yourself if you want to after that.
Absolutely. That sounds amazing. Well, thank you for joining us today, Tracy. I really loved hosting you. Loved hosting you here on the show, and I think you
Thank
gave
you.
some really amazing content. We
It was
spoke.
so nice to be in Europe, kind of, sort of, almost.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, in an ideal world, I would have everyone live. Just face to face. In the same room. That works better sometimes, but for now,
Yeah.
this will have to do as well. But no, we touched on some really great topics. We spoke about thought leadership, about editorial versus advertorial. We spoke about how to get in contact with media outlets. We spoke about, you told us about helpreporterout.net, which is a great actionable resource. And you told us about the importance of having a publicist and knowing what to send to the media. So thank you so much for sharing that story with us.
Thank you.
Of course. If you want to learn more about Tracy, you can contact her via her website as well, and that is lamouriemedia.com. It's here below, and it's in the description of today's video. And make sure that if you like this kind of content, then make sure to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe to the Entrepreneur Suite. And if you want to know more about me, this show, the Entrepreneur Suite, go to my website, theentrepreneursuite.com. And of course, join me again next week. Then my guest will be a sales and marketing specialist, and we'll talk about how you can turn your founder-led sales organization into a sales and marketing machine. So thank you all for being here with us today. I wish you all a good remainder of the day, and I hope to see you all next week again. Bye, guys.